Afghanistan regarding the Taliban takeover. As we know of now, the Afghan Interior Ministry has stated as of recent that the Taliban has entered the Afghan capital from all these sides. And the Taliban has said that it has no plans to take over the Afghan capital by force. And the armed group has issued a statement that its fighters have moved to the outskirts of Kabul. For more on this, we are joined by Lieutenant General Retired Ghulam Mustafa. Thank you so much for speaking to Indus News, Mr. Mustafa. Now, what is the future of President Ashraf Ghani and his administration?
I think Ashraf Ghani misled the whole situation to start with. When Doha dialogue began and Ashraf Ghani was not on the table, it was just between US and the Afghan, Ashraf Ghani should have known his days are numbered. And that was the time when he should have actually gone into active dialogue with the Taliban, but he refused. And he now stands almost alone with his government, so-called Taliban regime melting around him. There is no way out. There is only one way for him is to submit to Taliban's way of, going for the peace in the capital. Now the Taliban are on the up, and they would, I think they would have been saying right from the day one that they're occupying spaces, reducing the political options for the regime in Kabul and the others who are supporting that. Also, the Taliban moved diplomatically and as well as politically. They had already weaned away the opposition, political opposition of Ashraf Ghani, Abdullah and Ahmad Shah Massoud's son, and others who were supposed to have given a lot of resistance to Taliban. And now he finds himself totally alone. So political opposition more or less is with Taliban. The majority of the people are welcoming Taliban. The Afghan army is melting around Afghan capital. Taliban now even have their own air force. That is surprising. So therefore, Ashraf Ghani would do very well to talk to Taliban immediately and go in for kind of a transition system, peaceful transfer of power to people who usually are agreed upon, so that peace can be ensured to. That is where, if the Kabul is stabilized, then I think the rest of the Afghan territory could also be thinking of peace.
All right. We are also joined by Lieutenant General named Khalid Lodhi as well. And regarding the whole situation, now the Taliban have announced that nobody would be harmed. Now, Lieutenant General named Khalid Lodhi, is that an all-out amnesty, or would the Taliban put the Kabul administration under any form or trial?
I think, first of all, we must try to understand the nature of their victory, and then everything will fall in place. This is not a military victory. Taliban has taken over the entire Afghanistan through a political coup, because the people of Afghanistan were fed up from the occupation forces and also from the corrupt regime of Ashraf Ghani. And that is why wherever Taliban went, they were welcomed and people joined them. There was no fights given by Afghan forces. So all these are indicators that actually it is a political victory. And now what you are saying, I think the world must not have witnessed a victor behaving so benevolently as Taliban are doing. They are giving amnesty to everyone. I'm not sure whether they have some selective people whom they might not give amnesty. I cannot say that, but the general amnesty given to all people who are government servants, who were otherwise, whatever they were doing, they have said whosoever wants to leave Kabul, wherever they want to go, they will be given safe exit. And if I'm allowed to say, they have even given safe exit to American forces, whatever was there. And America did a great blunder by just in the last 24 hours bringing a lot of forces in Kabul, and now they are evacuating all of them. Anyway, all said and done, it is a political victory. They are showing magnanimity, and I think this will earn them international recognition and also great support within Afghanistan. As I have always been saying, people kept on saying that the situation in Afghanistan is worsening. I kept on saying, no, it is improving. Afghanistan is going towards peace. And I stand by my words. Afghanistan situation is improving and Afghanistan is going towards peace.
All right. Coming back to you, Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa. Now, the Taliban are at Kabul's gates, but they say that they won't take the capital by force, but through a smooth transition. What does this even mean?
I think it was about a few days back, it was on this very program or some other program on the Indus that I said that they will lay siege to Kabul and almost immobilize Kabul. And mentally, I think they already lost. The Kabul regime has already lost. And when they talk of smooth transition, they talk of a peaceful transition. That is what the world wanted. Everybody said that nobody is going to accept if Taliban take over Kabul by force. And that is not a chance they are giving to anybody in the world, led by America, the Western world. And Pakistan also, I think it was a justified stand by Pakistan that because Pakistan has always been talking of kind of a political settlement and negotiated settlement of the Afghan issue. Our Prime Minister, in fact, was on it even before he became Prime Minister. So therefore, all in all, I think Taliban have moved very rightly and they are now in a position to dictate terms, but they are not doing it by force, announcing amnesty. And that something is, I think, second time in the history that you see that. First was when our Prophet, peace be upon him, entered Mecca. And this is the kind of, not that it equals or is anywhere near that kind of a victory, but it is just kind of approach that you can understand the Taliban have adopted. They have negotiated with almost everyone, everywhere. They had formed their teams to negotiate with the elders in the area, the warlords in the area, and consequently they are in a position now to say what they want to. And not going in Kabul by force is what the world was expecting from them. And I think we should be seeing the recognition of the transitional government, so to say, as and when they are formed. And the transitional government is where Taliban will have a major say. They will have people from the so-called earlier erstwhile Northern Alliance and people like Shah Massoud's son and others. So that it's an all-inclusive setup that takes over the existing whatever government is there in Kabul and around, and then they go about sitting down and negotiating for a kind of a future dispensation in Afghanistan. Earlier, if you recall 2002, when Bonn Agreement was signed, the Afghans were kept out of it. Pakistan was kept out of it. And this was unnatural to begin with. And now you see the collapse of everything, and the Americans are crying, the Britishers are crying, and everybody, they are shocked. I mean, why should they be shocked? They had the best of intelligence apparatus at their disposal. They had all these years at their disposal. They had best of technology at their disposal. And now they suddenly find that everything that they had at disposal is of no use when it comes to the kind of the determination shown by these people. And the world at large, not only aghast, mostly they are now accepting the fact that Taliban are the ones who are calling the shots and they must be allowed to call the shots. I hope we see some good recognition coming from the countries around Afghanistan of the dispensation which is negotiated. And I think it should be there in the next few hours, 2 to 3 days. We should be seeing some kind of a negotiated settlement, Ashraf Ghani being sidelined. And I think what we need to now understand is what happens thereafter. That is where Taliban's management skills, their ability to handle various factions within Afghanistan, get them on the table and get them to agree to what is good for Afghanistan, what is good for Afghan people. And that is what will be the Afghan-owned, Afghan-led, and Afghan-managed peace in Afghanistan. And that is what I think is needed. And that is what Pakistan has been striving for. And if that were to happen, I think Pakistan would be well justified to claim that that is what they wanted to achieve. And Pakistan has managed to achieve that, not by force, but by the skills, by the way they managed to get various sides on the table, get them to talk to each other, get them to find ways out of it. And Taliban also have shown a lot of improvement from what we saw way back in 1996 onwards. Everybody expected Taliban to behave in the same manner. We all forgot that they have been in it now for over 40 years It's time for them to realize that, and they have realized that Afghanistan needs peace. Afghanistan needs investment. Afghanistan needs diplomatic recognition as a country which is on the march towards peace, allowing this region to flourish, because a settled, peaceful Afghanistan, and let me put it here again, American forces may be out of this region, but Americans are not out. And I fear that they will, at some point, if they're not already doing it, continue to destabilize Afghanistan and Pakistan, both, because it doesn't suit them that this geographical entity becomes stable, allowing one belt, one road connectivity that the Chinese have been working for, the Russians have agreed upon, the Iranians have agreed upon, even Middle East has agreed upon, and some Europeans also agreed upon. So that, I think, is what the Americans would like, would not like, and that is what Pakistan and other countries in the region are actually endeavoring. Hopefully, I think we are heading towards that.
Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa, now you mentioned regarding the United States and how you've mentioned that the United States troops may have withdrawn from Afghanistan, but the Americans are still present. Now, speaking of this, the United States has said in the past that it would stand by the Ashraf Ghani government against the Taliban. Why do you think they have not acted with the capital now under the Taliban siege?
I mean, they were there for 20 years with everything that they had. And starting with General Musharraf, to General Kiani, to people like us who are out of uniform, everybody advised them to get out of it. Negotiate when they can, when they are in that position to give to Afghans and the Taliban the kind of peace that they needed. They didn't. The arrogance of power actually has no bounds. And then standing by Ashraf Ghani, a dispensation, like I said earlier, which was imposed on the Taliban. Afghans aren't that kind of people. Democracy, as is seen by the West, as being advocated in Pakistan even, is something alien to the Afghan people. They will come to their own kind of system. And their democracy and their system is, I think, if those who understand the tribal system, they know that tribals actually negotiate for, in every case they negotiate. And when that fails, then only then they go to war against each other or within themselves. So I think they have the skills. Let's give them the opportunity and let's hope and let's have faith in the way the Taliban have moved peacefully, aggressively, taking everybody on board as far as possible, negotiating with the people, giving chance to the people, amnesty to the people, even looking after the women. And I don't know whether many of us realize Taliban actually have used American money in the areas that under their control to establish schools for women, to establish hospitals. So they're very wise people now. I think we're dealing with very, very wise lot of people.
All right. Now, regarding the international community, virtually the entire international community has said that they would not recognize a government as a result of a military takeover of Afghanistan. As it now seems virtually inevitable, how do you think the world would react to the situation?
One is that the Americans have another Saigon, and that will never go away from their minds. This the Americans will have to realize that they have a history long time back, and now it's for them to get from Afghanistan peacefully what they've been trying to get by force. And Britain knows that more than anybody else. And Britain is what I think is kind of a security provider in this region now for the Americans. And they are the people who are wise and they understand how to deal with them. And probably we will see the Western world coming forward to give a kind of a half-hearted understanding, let's say recognition. But I expect China to move first. I expect Russia to move next. And I expect Iran to move. And I expect Pakistan to move. I also expect Turkey to realize that the mistake they're about to commit by coming into Kabul and trying to defend Kabul's airport, Pakistan's advice timely and their sagacity and the ability to understand the situation has avoided a very major embarrassment and difficulty for Pakistan from being a Pakistan strength. If Turkey were to come in with its forces, would have become Pakistan's major weakness. Taliban also, I think, Taliban and Turks, they sit down to talk. I think they can come to an agreement. And that's what our Prime Minister alluded to in the last interview that he gave to the foreign media.
All right. Now, General, the Chief of Staff to the President, Ashraf Ghani, basically said on Twitter to the people of Kabul, addressing the people of Kabul, please do not worry, there is no problem. The situation of Kabul is under control. Is the situation really under control, or is the situation escalating far quicker than anticipated?
I think there is no remedy for delusions. They should realize about 2 weeks back that it's time to get a safe exit and trying to negotiate safe exit. And whatever they now are trying is just trying to, I think, more for themselves rather than anybody else. They're just trying to, build up whatever morale they can so that when they talk to Taliban, they have some kind of ability, some kind of a strength, some kind of some weapons in their hands to negotiate with Taliban. Negotiations are not going to be easy, let me put it that way, because Taliban, because they have declared they don't want any bloodshed in Kabul, they don't want to get into force. And this is what Ashraf Ghani and his team are likely to use against Taliban to get whatever concessions they can for themselves. It's going to be mostly trying to save their own skins. They're not worried about the Afghan people. Afghan people mostly, I think, have decided against Ashraf Ghani and his team.
All right. Now, regarding the situation with the peaceful transfer, what exactly does a peaceful transfer entail?
Well, the world thinks is a different way. My personal view of what I think should be happening is that some people, not Ashraf Ghani himself, but some people from his team and some people from the other areas who have their own strength and with whom Taliban already have negotiated, and Ashraf Ghani's political opponents, Abdullah and his team, including Taliban, they were the ones who would, their reps would take over the administration like Taliban. They've already announced amnesty, and they will let the administration stay in place and get them to sort out the issues which are being faced by the Afghan people, so that they become peaceful and they become the kind of restiveness that is obvious within Kabul and the areas around. That has to be taken care of first. And then, of course, they will be discussing how to go about bringing in a government in Kabul which is acceptable to all, kind of constitution which is acceptable to all, and the kind of dispensation which is acceptable to all, in fact, not all, majority. So that a smooth elections, whatever you might call it in some form, take place. Jirga is one thing that is the Afghans and the Pathans are very good at. I think that is something that we should be seeing very soon.
All right. So now regarding the international community, as we've mentioned, the United States, the European Union, and the United Kingdom have begun evacuating their citizens from their embassies, from Kabul city and the province itself. So can you tell us more about what the situation is like for them regarding this whole situation?
Two things are critical to the Americans. That whatever they have been doing, if those things were against the people by way of intelligence and other things, they don't fall into Taliban hands. One. Two, they would like to be on the table when this peaceful transition kind of a negotiation takes place. And three, they would definitely like a safe passage for majority of their people. And those contractors, actually, those basically the ones who are troublemakers for the Afghan and everybody else, they want them out. And they would like Taliban to assure them and guarantee the safety of various embassies, Western embassies, which are in Kabul right now. Because all embassies are not being totally vacated. Some staff will be left behind. Because Taliban, I'm sure, behind the scenes, have given some kind of assurance to these people that we will protect you, and they have been doing so. We will protect you, and you please stay on so that we can talk about it. So post takeover, it may take another couple of months to things to appear in some form, but Afghanistan has to be rebuilt. A lot of money is required. The Afghan economy is involved. That has to be developed. So American presence in the region and Afghanistan in some form will be there, and so would be the allies and NATO, not forces, but in some form will be there. I think so.
All right. Now, General, there are news and there are sources that are saying, maybe there are rumors that are saying that a negotiation has been reached between the Afghan Interior Ministry and the Taliban itself. Do you have a say on this, or do you have an opinion on this?
Sorry, I couldn't get your question clearly. There's some kind of a distortion in your voice.
All right. My question to you is, can you provide us an opinion regarding the information that is disseminating right now, that is all over the internet and news channels right now, stating that a negotiation has been reached between the Afghan Interior Ministry and the Taliban?
If I get the sense of your question, negotiations, yes.
Yeah.
One, Taliban are good at it. And they are the ones who are best at it, honestly. And they are the ones who come out on top in every negotiation that they set, starting with the agreement. If you look at the agreement itself, except for one or two things that were what the Americans insisted, rest is all what Taliban wanted. It appears that if Taliban actually had drafted that agreement and given to the Americans to get it spelling everything right. So they are good at it, and negotiations will take place. It will be protected. It's not going to be a quick affair. It will take time, and let's hope that this process of negotiation starts as soon as possible. And let's hope the sense prevails in Washington, in London, in Paris, that this is what needs to be done immediately. And they should actually encourage, and they should become the catalyst to get these things started, so that the bloodshed, which everybody was predicting, which alhamdulillah has been avoided so far, we can avoid it as far as possible. We should avoid kind of a confrontation which is likely to happen if these negotiations aren't held as soon as possible. And that should be in this week, at least as soon as possible within this week.
All right, Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa, regarding Pakistan, what does the situation mean for Pakistan regarding the Turkham border, being closed, and the crossing with Afghanistan after the Taliban's takeover? And the Interior Ministry Minister Sheikh Rashid Ahmed himself has said this, that the border, Turkham border, is to be closed. What does this mean?
I think Pakistan, as a people and as a government, we should thank Almighty Allah that what Pakistan has been trying is peace in Afghanistan, and let the Afghan people decide for themselves what they want to, without actually trying to be seen to be interfering, regardless of the propaganda that goes on in Washington and elsewhere, in New Delhi and Ashraf Ghani himself. Pakistan's total effort in the last 20 years that I know, frankly, starting with Ghulam Mustafa, Ghani, and everybody else who are in the line, they have been telling Americans, for God's sake, this is not the way to go about doing things in Afghanistan. So now we see Pakistan seems to have been vindicated. We should be grateful. But second, there will be some kind of a disturbance on the border, because those people who have been opposing Taliban and those people who have been fed these lies about Pakistan and Taliban Pakistan, which is still embedded there, these are the kind of people which will create trouble, not only on borders, but I think within Pakistan. We saw something like that happening in Karachi yesterday, and we have seen recently a few more terror incidents in Pakistan. And let's not forget that the biggest loser in this whole game has been India. We have invested over $3 billion plus, and they thought that they will get a space in Afghanistan, post-American withdrawal, and they will become the kind of so-called American viceroy, American puppets in that are the proxies in the region. But they have not. They have failed. And what they fear is that these Taliban must get through with whatever they're doing in Kabul. Things could be difficult for the Indians. Pakistan needs to, we need to be calm about it. We need to be rational about it without getting carried away by all that is being said about Pakistan and against Pakistan. Pakistan needs to focus to help Afghans reach the peace that they so richly deserve and they want.
All right. So, Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa, now a statement has been made by the Taliban stating that no one's life, property, and dignity will be harmed, and the lives of the citizens of Kabul will not be at risk. What is your opinion regarding this? Do you feel that this is something that might actually have some weightage to it, or is this just a statement made to give the people some solace?
Well, I think, if I get the sense of your question, Taliban mean it. Because if there is a bloodshed in Afghanistan and it continues for some time, Taliban, we fail to recognize that. And most of our commentators, I might say, or the analysts in Pakistan fail to recognize that. The biggest losers would be Taliban themselves. They are the ones who have fought and worked actively to get the foreign troops out of Afghanistan. And if Afghanistan were to return to pre-2000 situation, what do the Taliban get out of it? How do they get themselves recognized with the people? That is what they have been talking to the people. That is what they have been negotiating about. That is what they want, and that is what is best for them. And we should, I think, believe the Taliban spokesperson who have been emphasizing time and again that peace, remain calm, peace, we will protect you, we will help you. And they have done that so far. Their actions actually prove what they have been saying that. And therefore, Taliban must even now recognize, and they must understand that any kind of bloodshed will come back to haunt them. Because that is something the Afghans never forget. That is the kind of nature that they have. They will never forget that. Taliban know that.
Right.
So therefore, I think we should...
Please continue, please continue.
Therefore, I think we should encourage Taliban actively. The world community at large must encourage Taliban actively, rather than spreading rumors like bloodshed taking place everywhere all over Afghanistan. We should actually project the right situation. Taliban have even invited foreign journalists, and they have promised safe passage to them. Let's hope that the world community actually should encourage now the Afghans in general, and Taliban in particular, not to do what the world actually is saying and what I think the Americans want. That is, will be Taliban's defeat if they go into bloodshed and they were to sponsor it somehow. That is, I think Taliban understand that they will not allow the Americans and American-led power to succeed to get this region on the boil. Afghanistan, particularly Afghanistan and Pakistan, both together. Because that is what doesn't suit Taliban, doesn't suit anybody in the region. Iran doesn't want it, Pakistan doesn't want it, Central Asian republics don't want it, China doesn't want it, Russia doesn't want it. So why would the Taliban do what actually people are predicting or people are hoping? I'm not saying everybody, they are not bloodthirsty. But the policymakers in Washington and those who are neocons, the new neocons, they are the ones who actually want this kind of thing to happen. And that is what Pakistan has to guard against, that is what Taliban have to guard against. I think we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, maybe very dim at this point, but I see some kind of a light at the end of this very, very long, very dark tunnel for Afghanistan, for Pakistan, and for the region in particular.
All right. Now, Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa, as of recent, on the 11th of August, 2021, a U.S. defense official had stated that the Taliban fighters could isolate Afghanistan's capital in 30 days and possibly take it over within 90. This situation has rapidly increased. Can you give an analysis on this? Because this statement was given on the 12th of August, and as of now, it is the 15th of August. That hasn't given much time. It hasn't been the expected 30 days or the expected 90 days. The situation has rapidly increased. Can you provide your analysis?
I think this is where the biggest American failure and the Western-led powers' biggest failure is not 9/11. I think this is the biggest failure. because they failed to recognize the signs of what was about to happen. They failed to recognize that while Taliban had engaged all of them in negotiating, their reps, Taliban's reps, were behind the scenes negotiating with everybody else on the scene also. And they should have understood that these are not the same Taliban who they fought against in 96 onwards to 2001 and post 9/11. They are the ones who have matured over a period of time, and they have the ones who have been invited to almost all capitals, less of course Washington. The Western-led, American-led Western world failed to recognize the signs, early signs of what was about to happen. And when the Taliban was talking to the people on ground, various warlords, various elders, various influential people in different areas, they had, according to my information, I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but according to my information, they had formed a group of elders for every specific area to deal with and to talk to every lot of people. That is why you see the Afghan people not rising against them. If at best we see is they are not actually, if not welcoming them openly, do not even opposing them. So that is the kind of success the Americans failed to recognize that Taliban have achieved already. And that is the biggest failure that will come to haunt the Americans and whatever the policymakers were. They should have, I think, heeded to Pakistan's advice way back in 2002, 2003 onwards. Every time, everyone was telling them that whatever you want here is by force, not possible. And when they said that we will first defeat Taliban, then we will introduce democracy, and then we'll do this, I think that is not the kind of approach they need to understand. They should have understood, if anybody of all the countries in the world, of all the powers in the world, Americans must understand the limitations of power. If the Soviet Union with all that military might was defeated Afghanistan, how could the Americans succeed? I mean, they thought that with that kind of a power they would? No. Power has limitations. This is what Taliban understand now. And if they go on to bloodshed, that will be their biggest defeat too.
All right. Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa, now regarding the new interim head of Afghanistan, can you provide more detail on this? Can you give us an explainer? How do you see the situation progressing?
Hopefully, and let's hope so, and let's pray that the Western capitals understand this, they instruct their embassies, and I'm sure they have done that already. The embassies within Kabul, besides staying calm, must advise whatever remains of Ashraf Ghani's regime to work out a group which should talk to Taliban on what Taliban want and give to Taliban not almost everything, but get more people on board. And frankly, if this doesn't happen, this again is going to be a failure. Taliban are not trying to avoid bloodshed. Ashraf Ghani is trying to find some way to stay relevant to the situation. Americans actually are lost for a cause. They're lost for a strategy. They really don't know at this point in time what not to do. And if they were not to recognize the situation right now and what it could lead to, Americans wouldn't get what they want. And the Americans at this point in time, the best for them is to talk to Taliban and get Taliban on the negotiating table, sit with them, get some people from Ashraf Ghani's regime to get kind of a transition government which is needed at this time, immediately.
All right. Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa, thank you so much for your analysis, and we will resume this discussion after a short break. And